Hi guys, name is Korpen and welcome to my rank 5 US Weakspot video. This is going to be a little bit shorter of a video than the Soviet rank 5 video, since there's not many tanks that are rank 5 on the US tree. There's only 4 that I'm going to cover. I'm not going to bother with the M42 Duster, since that thing is largely unarmored. You shouldn't have to watch this video in order to get the grasp of its weak spots. So we're going to start off with the T95, and then we'll have a look at the M103 heavy tank, and after that we'll have a look at the pattern tanks. So if you're facing the T95 head on, how do you hit it to hurt it? And I'm gonna consider you're having a Russian 122mm anti-tank gun and you're firing AP-HE rounds mostly for this video. If I'm thinking of any other kind of shell, I'll probably name it. For example, if you're using shells that have over 300mm of pen, just go for the area around the gun mantlet here. You can see that it's largely not sloped at all. In fact, it does say 0° angle. It's just a big slab of steel. But if you have above 300mm of penetration, you might actually go for a shot around the gun mantlet. And you might also want to just fire straight through the gun mantlet, since the thickness of the gun mantlet is actually below 300mm. But if you're using the AP-HE round of the Russian 122mm guns, you might want to consider try to go for a low shot on the cupolas, because if you penetrate, the shell will explode inside the cupola and largely just knock out the tank. You can see here the ammunition is situated quite close to the cupola on each side. So here you even have fuel tanks. So you will not only kill the commander, you will ignite the ammo and the fuel tanks at the same time. And here's the warheads for the ammo. So you will most definitely knock out the tank if you get the penetration like that. So yeah, that's the easiest way of knocking out this tank in a head-on duel. You might also want to aim for this bit here. It's largely unsloped, but you see even a slight sloped angle at this kind of thickness gives the tank a very significant buff to its armor thickness, or the effective thickness. Like here you have almost 340mm of effective thickness, and there's no way you're gonna get through that with a normal APCR round. And the same goes for this area here on the left. And don't even fire low at this thing on the side, you won't have a single chance. And yes, I know that there are some weak spots here on the side, but if you fire at this, the shell will just explode against this plate, and what you'll most likely do is that you'll render the tank immobile. You'll throw a track off it or something like that. It does actually have a second plate here on the inside. It's hard to show you, maybe I can get a hold of that. Yeah, here you see this kind of plate here. If the shell penetrates that plate up there that I show you, and it explodes, I think this plate will actually hold up and protect the crew. And the same goes for aiming at this thing from the side. You have a 100mm slab of steel here, or armor, a shirt or a skirt protecting the tracks, and if you hit this and you penetrate, the shell will probably explode after that, and 50mm of thickness in a second layer, kind of a spaced armor layer, will most likely be enough to protect the crew. So what you want to do if you're facing the tank this way, avoid firing at these areas here, because this area is pretty well sloped and if it doesn't deflect the shell right off the bat, it will negate the penetrative power of the shell by a significant number. And I believe that the 50mm plate, that is the spaced armored second layer behind this little armor plate, will probably be enough once again to protect the tank. But what you have up here is a layer that is just one single layer of armor, and if you can pen this, you will knock out the tank. But a better way to knock out the tank, in seeing it from the side, I'm going to switch over to this side of the tank so we see it clearly, is that try to hit this area. It's not really sloped and it's very unarmored, or it's weakly armored. Same goes for this area here. So if you go for a turret or a cupola shot and you aim for flat bits of armor, or you might also aim for the armor bit as a whole up here, you will probably penetrate, and the explosive power of the shell will knock out the T95. And it's a very bad idea to try to knock out the tank by firing at it from behind, because this thing, if I'm not mistaken, has 2 engines. No, it does actually have 1 engine, but the transmission and the engines are big and solid, and they will protect the crew from most of the hits that you fire at this thing from behind. Of course, you will immobile the tank and it won't be able to fire back at you, but it will have a hard time knocking it out. You basically need to penetrate the fuel tank and then put a second shell into the back of the tank to ignite the fuel, and that will put the tank on fire, or it will set the tank on fire, and after that you might need 1 or 2 shells more to disable the tank and to destroy it, basically. So you will be out of harm's way here at the back, but it will take a long time to knock this tank out by firing at the engine. So a good way of knocking out the T95 could be to fire at the threads here to disable the tank, and then try to go around and just look for a flat area up high on the tank and aim for that, and put a shell through a flat area like this one, or maybe into the cupolas, or to go around it completely and to set the tank on fire. So over to the M103 tank, heavy tank. So looking at the M103 120mm gun tank, you do have a formidable opponent, but it does have some significant weak spots, and the main weak spot is situated here, the turret ring, and then this area of armor right next to the turret ring, which is not really well angled, I would say, and it doesn't really have all that effective thickness in the terms of armor or armor plates. So if you can just hit the turret right close to the gun mantlet, you will probably knock out the tank. And there's also another weak spot here, like the gun mantlet, this green bit, which is largely not really sloped. It does say it is sloped. I had to, oh yeah, it is. So that could be, if you have the penetrative power and strong enough to get through the gun mantlet to negate the 48 degrees of angling on the gun mantlet, you might be able to knock out the tank. So a good thing would be to aim for the bottom bit right below the gun, because if the shot is deflected, it will go straight down into the tank, or it will jam the turret and go straight into the tank, and you'll hit the driver right in the head, and he's sitting between ammunition, so a detonation down there will just flat out knock out the tank, no question about that. And here you can see that most of the crew in this tank is positioned here in the turret, so you basically only have one crewman in the hull, and that's the driver. So if you fire at the hull, this tank might be shrugging off the damage that it takes, especially if you're firing a PCR round. So you definitely want to penetrate the turret in some way or the other. That's where you want to hit this thing, because if you penetrate the turret armor, you will put some serious hurt on the crew. There's also a commander's cupola up here, and although it's at places well sloped, you might be able to penetrate it, and if you do, you knock out the commander and set the tank on fire, or you will knock out the commander and detonate the tank, since there are ammunition storages up here. So commander will die, and then you'll hit the ammo rack, and that's the end of the tank. So do we have any other kind of weak spots? Yeah, right next to this main seam here at the front. If you hit that, you'll knock out the tank probably. And depending on what kind of range you're firing at this tank, you might get a dropping shell down into this upper hull part of the tank, and coming in from an angle like this, if a shell hits it, you don't really have that 60-degree angle, and you will probably knock out the tank. So at longer ranges, firing at the hull is a good idea. At shorter ranges, you might want to aim for the turret and the weak spots I've shown you. Please do not fire at these bits, because they're not really modeled as a weak spot. I don't think. They will just detonate your shell, and that will be it, I'm guessing. So let's look at the tank from the side. Obviously you have a huge weak spot here at the side, where the tank is largely unarmored, or very thinly armored. And even though the hull is sloped, you will probably penetrate this area. But I would go for I would try to aim high on the turret, or go for this area, since the turret isn't really all that armored, and it doesn't really have the angle effective enough to deflect shots. So a side shot at the turret or the hull should disable this tank, no doubt, and if you get around it or behind it, just try to knock it out by firing at the turret. Firing down here will of course ignite a fuel tank, damage the transmission. It will disable the tank and possibly knock out the engine, put it on fire or set it on fire, what have you. You know the deal. And you will need 3 rounds into the engine, most likely, to get your kill. So it's a better idea just to fire straight into the back of the turret. Over to the Patton tanks. This video is going quickly. So the M46 Patton, it's not really known or well known for its armor thickness and its great armor layout. So this weak spot walkthrough isn't really all that necessary. I'll tell you the main weak spots right away. The machine gun port here is not sloped at all, and it's not really armored. So if you have a standard 122mm gun, you will probably knock out the tank in one go by hitting that. And I would also aim for this bit here, which is not really all that sloped. I guess this is kind of a driver's hatch. Let's have a look. No, it isn't. Some kind of periscope perhaps. So even though it's 100mm thick in armor, the bad angle will just, yeah, it's not going to be a problem knocking out the tank anywhere by firing at the hull. Well, if you do fire down here, you might have a problem penetrating depending on the angle, so I would definitely go for hull shot. You shouldn't have any problem knocking out this tank by penetrating anywhere. And that also goes for the gun mantlet, although you have a second layer here behind it. But if you fire and you hit quite close to the gun, you should get through. And I haven't really played this tank all that much, I don't have it, so I can't really answer for whether these two layers here acts as space armor and they add up, or if they don't. I'm kind of guessing they do. Yeah, but right next to the gun you only have 114 millimeters of thickness, whereas on the side you get somewhere over 200, and even 200 millimeters of armor isn't all that much, considering the kind of guns that this tank will go up against. So you shouldn't have much of a problem to knock out this tank, really. You can also fire here at the side. Turret is largely unangled, thinly armored. And looking at this thing from the side, we'll just pick your area to aim for and fire at it, and you'll knock out the tank. So let's have a look at the X-ray. You have the ammunition storages down here at the bottom of the tank, so a low aimed shot will be your best bet. But then again, if you fire at the turret, and especially here on the side, you have ammo here. If you fire at the turret and you hit the crew, all you have to do is to knock out 3 crewmen. No, actually you have to knock out 4 crewmen to disable the tank, but yeah, 3 dead crewmen and this tank won't be all that effective. So let's have a look at the M47, the Pattern 2 version. So looking at the Pattern 2, the second version of the Pattern tank in a series of many Pattern variants, all the way up to the M60 Pattern tank. This was a step in the right direction in the way of protection, since the M46 didn't really hold its own against the T54. So they needed a second variant of the tank. And you still have the same weak spot in the way of the machine gun port here. Let's have a look. You see here it's not sloped at all and just 100 millimeters thick. And the same goes for the upper hull here, but please be wary of the brutal angling on this plate. So all this medium tank need to do is to present itself at a slight angle, and you will have a problem getting through this upper glacis. And looking at the thing from a head-on angle, you might struggle to penetrate this area. Same goes for this area here, protecting the drivers and ammunition stowage. That might be a good spot to aim for, especially if this tank is, if you're firing from down to up position, you're firing up at the tank. Try to go for this area, because you will hit the ammunition storages and you will knock out the tank. But other than that, I would say, yeah, here's a significant weak spot, the turret ring, and the hatch for both the driver and the radio commander. Those are weak spots. But really anywhere around the turret, especially below the gun, will probably disable the tank and knock it out. You can see here it's quite well sloped, but if you hit this bit of armor here, you only have 125 millimeter of armor to get through at an angle of 26 degrees. And up here, well, the shell might get deflected if you're really unlucky. Probably won't though. And the gun mantlet as well isn't really all that sloped. I don't get it how they could design a tank like this. It's not really all that well protected, but it's light and it's pretty fast, so that's what you have to work with in when using this tank. And looking at it from the side, just pick your area, just like with the M46 pattern. Anywhere you fire at this thing when using a rank 5 vehicle will knock out the tank, most likely. Provided that your shell does have some kind of explosive filler, some HE filler, so try to use that. But as you could see before, you have the ammo storages here at the bottom of the tank, and then you also have 2 ammo racks here around the turret ring. And if you hit those, you will kill the crewmen in the turret and most likely kill 1 or 2 of the crewmen down here. And if you do that, it's game over for the pattern. So yeah, what did I miss? You also have the commander's cupola here. You can also aim for that, but it's not really necessary since you have better areas to target. But yeah, avoid firing at the upper glacis on the hull, since that area of armor might deflect the shot. So I think that's gonna be it for this video. As always, thank you for watching, guys, and see you around.